We're reading Strength for Parents of Missing Children by me, Marie White, and we are on chapter 6, Guilt, the Hidden Hurt. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you, and there's a blank there for you to fill out. Did you put the word lose in the blank? Instead, write the word learn. I know you've already thought of everything you would have done differently if you had known that the last time you had your child would be the last time you had your child. We can't turn back the hands of time. And if we learn from them, these experiences don't have to be mistakes. In the movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Walter will lose his job if he can't find an important man. His life has been plain and ordinary. He longs for more, but the pressures of life have made him feel like boring was all that he could accomplish. When he has to find this man for the first time in his life, he does what he has always wanted to do. Walter goes on an epic journey and discovers the man he was meant to be. It takes a crisis for him to change his life. This is your crisis. People change when they hurt enough that they have to, learn enough that they want to, and receive enough that they are able to. John Maxwell. If your life was a movie, this would be your defining moment. This is the part when the audience would wonder, will this tragedy crush you, or does it push you toward greater things? Do you want your child to return only to find you collapsed on the floor? Or do you want to be stronger, better, and more in control than you've ever been? It's time to reevaluate your life. If this event is a turning point in your story, then to move on, you need to address anything that is holding you down. Besides the grief, there is also something else that's weighing you down. There are days when you feel like you deserve this. Have you really done something so terrible that God had to take your child away and put them through this? I'm going to assume that you've not done anything to make you deserving of this punishment. That means that Satan is lying to you when he whispers, "You deserve this. It's all your fault." Or maybe you're lying to yourself. Bad things happen to good people too. In case you're stuck on the idea that you might deserve this punishment, let's investigate one example of cause and effect and see if it meets your expectations for God's justice. It would be worth your time to read the whole story of King David's life in 2 Samuel chapters 11 and 12. That part of the Bible really helps you understand the training program that God has for each of us. David was a godly man whom God used to do incredible acts. But for a moment, we're going to look at a time when David did some terrible things. 2 Samuel chapter 11 begins, "In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men, but David remained in Jerusalem." What was David's royal position? He was the king. And where was David? In Jerusalem. So at the time that kings go to war, King David was not going to war. That's problem number one. 2 Samuel 11, 2-4 says, "One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, 'She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite.' Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her." So what did he see while lazing around on the rooftop? Bathsheba. What did he do about it? Went and got her. So while King David was skirting his duties as king, he saw a naked married woman, and instead of turning away, he slept with her. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant." How many wrong moves did King David just make? Do you think that those actions were bad enough for God to punish David? He didn't go to work, had an affair, and a child resulted from it. David's transgressions don't end there. He then sends a message to one of his soldiers, Joab. He tells Joab to have the woman's husband killed. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, "Put Uriah out front where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die." Does this sound like the behavior of a godly man? Then Uriah's wife heard that her husband had died. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband had died, she mourned for him. After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. Now, if you and I were on the jury of a murder trial, and there was a man who did not do his job, had an affair, a child was conceived, and then the man had the husband murdered, I can only assume that you and I would ask the judge for a harsh sentence. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him." David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man." David begged God for forgiveness, and while there would be a consequence for his action, it was far milder than it could have been. I would think that God would take away David's kingdom, his palace, his money, his reputation, his family support, Bathsheba, and his child. But that's not what God did. God took the baby they conceived in adultery. David, 1, didn't go to war for his country. 2, played the peeping Tom on a married woman. 3, had sex with her. 4, conceived an illegitimate child. 5, tried to cover it up. And 6, had an innocent man murdered. At what point in the story did God finally enact punishment on David? It wasn't until the 6th sin that God finally said, "Enough is enough." I don't know you. But I know that I have not done anything like what David did. God knows everything that I have ever said or done. And while I am not perfect, I don't deserve to have my child ripped away. Let's stop kidding ourselves that the pack of gum you stole when you were 5 makes losing your child a fitting punishment. This is not cause and effect. This is not a cause and effect event. You didn't cause it, and God is not punishing you. You aren't perfect. Ask God to forgive you and then move on. A paraphrase of Psalm 103, 11 through 17 from the Message says, "God makes everything come out right. He puts victims back on their feet. He showed Moses how he went about his work, opened up his plans to all of Israel. God is sheer mercy and grace, not easily angered. He's rich in love. He doesn't endlessly nag and scold, nor hold grudges forever. He doesn't treat us as our sins deserve, nor pay us back in full for our wrongs. As high as heaven is over the earth, so strong is his love for those who fear him. And as far as sunrise is from sunset, he has separated us from our sins. As parents feel for their children, God feels for those who fear him. He knows us inside and out, keeps in mind that we're made of mud. Men and women don't live very long. Like wildflowers, they spring up and blossom, but a storm snuffs them out just as quickly, leaving nothing to show that they were there. God's love, though, is ever and always, eternally present to all who fear him. Don't let Satan lie to you. You're already broken. Don't allow yourself to be defeated. Force yourself to go to church every week. Read the Bible daily. Join a Bible study. You need to flex your spiritual muscles and show the devil that he has no power over you. The devil's goal is to separate you from God and from God's people. He wants to destroy you physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Do not allow him to win. If you can make it through this, and I'm living proof that you can, then you will emerge stronger than you ever thought possible. There is a warrior deep inside of you. For your child's sake, let it loose. Listen to How to Overcome the Devil, Part 1, at mariewhiteauthor.com on the Strength for Parents tab and click on book link 8. See you on the next chapter.